Yeah, really pleased to see all of you this afternoon. Now I can see the numbers are increasing. There's quite a few of you that are joining. I'm glad that this lunchtime slot seems to be working well for us all. We did have record numbers in our webinar last month, so no pressure for today. We might get there. Let's see. For those that don't know me, I'm Sarah Griffiths. I'm the Deputy Regional Director of Finance in the East of England region. I'm really pleased to be able to introduce today's session and, of course, to welcome today's speaker, Lara Millward, again, leveraging on the power of our external networks. So thank you, Nicola, for that connection. And I'll let Lara introduce herself properly in a couple of minutes. So I'm really looking forward to the session today. It's called Personal Resilience and Confidence to Cope. We'll be covering those topics as well as microaggressions in the workplace. And in the second part, make a nice link into overall mind and body fitness, although I'm not sure we're going to be quite stretching to Pilates on the beach. You never know where the conversation topics will go. We're going to have some breakout groups during today's session again, so really looking forward to hearing from a number of you. Great to have lots of engagement, feedback and discussions from those groups as well. We are scheduled to run until 1 o'clock today, and I know that some of you will need to dash off to meetings and make a prompt departure at that time. So obviously, if that's the case, please do that. Please do so. For those of you that can stick around, then myself, Nicola and Lara will be around on the call for a bit longer after 1. So do feel free to join us and we can carry on the discussion informally. So again, stay if you're able to. Great. So without any further ado, can I hand over to Lara for today's session?
You absolutely can. You absolutely can. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Nicola. Hello, everybody. Welcome to your lunchtime. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I wanted to start actually by thanking all of you for the work that you do for the NHS, an organisation which I have huge admiration for and does some incredible work. So thank you to all of you for everything that you do. As a neuroleadership coach, we bring the neuroscience into the leadership space. So we're looking at brain-based techniques to help us all in the leadership space. And I've been working with women in the gender equality space across many organizations. And I like to call my sessions performance fuel for your mental muscle. As you know, I was also an athletic coach. And if we want to be fit and well athletically, your muscles need fuel and nourishment. So today is really a bit of performance fuel for you, for that mental muscle. I hope you've also had some fuel for your tummy. I know it's lunchtime and eating, as we know, is very important for the brain. So for today, we're going to look at two topics. We're going to start looking at microaggressions, and they're big topics. We will touch on them today. It's never going to be hugely comprehensive, but we're going to do our best in the time that we have. Getting better at noticing and responding to microaggressions is something we can all do to help create a more inclusive culture at work. It can actually be scary addressing microaggressions. So collectively today, let's consider how we can lead on helping ourselves and others be less fearful about dealing with microaggressions at work. So what is a microaggression? The McKinsey report, the Women at Work report of 2023, has this definition, which I'd like to share with you. Microaggressions are a form of everyday discrimination that is rooted in bias. They include comments and actions that demean or dismiss someone based on gender, race, or other aspects of their identity. They signal disrespect, cause acute stress, and can negatively impact women's careers and health. Now, there's years of data from organisations like McKinsey that say that women that experience microaggressions at work experience them at a significantly higher rate than men, and they're twice as likely to be mistaken for someone more junior, or to hear comments on their emotional state or the way they look. I've heard it many times from the women that I coach. Most recently, actually, a woman, she's on the exec of a £1 billion company, on the exec team, and she was called by a junior male colleague who asked her to book his travel. He said he just picked her off the website by what she looked like. I've also heard from women this week who were told to smile more in meetings by senior male colleagues. And of course, they had an emotional reaction to that. They couldn't speak. It's very difficult to know how to deal with that in the moment. When we have an emotional reaction, you know, the amygdala floods the prefrontal cortex, our thinking, our CEO of the brain. And it's very hard to think logically, rationally, strategically when you're in a high emotional state. So it's why it's a good place to talk about this today, and to talk about what we're seeing and feeling and how we can cope, and to share that together. I think that's an amazing thing that you've done today, Sarah and Nicola, so thank you for inviting us in. Nicola, I think, is going to share a slide with us about a number of microaggressions that people have said they experienced. And what we'd like to do first is to then go into a breakout to share, have you experienced microaggressions? What have you experienced? And how did you cope? And then we can come back in and talk about that. So the slide gives some examples.
Can you see that? Sorry to interrupt. Can you, is it visible?
Yeah. Does it need to be a little bit bigger, I think, maybe? Can you do that?
Okay, hold on. Yeah.
That's all right.
Oh, is that too big?
Thank you, sir.
Perfect.
Some thumbs up. So as Nicola's put together for us, people are asked to take notes in meetings despite being one of the most senior members, very same as I've experienced as well. People of colour being asked, where are you from? Where are you really from? Excessive comments on an individual's appearance rather than their contribution. Parent leaving early for school, being referred to as a part-timer. These sorts of things are microaggressions, and actually they're not micro at all, are they? Because as they build up, they start to impact how we're thinking and feeling at work. And if we want to perform and bring our best selves to work, that's really hard if you're constantly hearing things that undermine or demean you in a way. So let's go into breakout. We're a fast-paced webinar today. We're going to go into a breakout. I think Nicola's going to set it up and let you know how long you've got. But have you experienced microaggressions, and how have you coped? Have you experienced them, and how have you coped? How long have we got, Nicola?
I think if we go into these for about, do you think 10, 15 minutes should be about right?
Welcome back. 130 wonderful and diverse brains in the room. All who have their own thinking patterns. So what I'd love to ask is, would anyone like to share what they talked about, an experience and or a coping strategy? Anyone like to come off camera or mute and share with our wonderful group today? That's some good discussions. Emma, hi. Emma, welcome.
Hi, nice to meet you all. Yeah, no, really a small group, but really active conversation. We all reflected at different stages of our careers, some of the things we've all felt. Perhaps for some of us with the younger children, you know, the kind of friendly narrative about being part-timer. But, you know, we may need to go and pick up small people, etc. But we wonder sometimes if we might be our own enemies. You know, the justification, whether asked for or not about we're going to be logging back on in the evening, so don't worry about that. And some of us who are slightly, you know, more older in our vintage, going through the wonderful capital M, you know, again, kind of, you know, just prefixing our today's a bit of a bad day, you know, so actually, again, justifying that zone. I don't think any of us reflected of any direct experience in terms of microaggression, but we wondered about our own behaviours in terms of coping. So again, prefixing it, really sorry, would you mind if I just contribute to that? And actually, that's really not a healthy place to start with. It's kind of, you know, justifying our voice, and actually every voice matters regardless of experience, seniority, you know, sex, race, etc. I thought that was quite helpful. And the other thing we wondered as our conversation progressed is that sometimes it's strong women who do some of these things to other strong women. So I reflected on experience I've had recently at the most senior level, where a text was then sent from a different system CFO to my ICS CFO saying there's a strange woman in this group. And you know, when you go, that was really helpful, wasn't it? So I don't always think this is necessarily a male to a female piece, but yeah, really interesting conversation and a really interesting question to pose to us all.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Emma. Really appreciate that, and some really good observations there. Anyone else like to contribute? I'm sure we had some great conversations going on.
Prue.
Hi, Prue.
Hello. Um, yeah, we had similar conversation. Again, a mixture of the group, and older. A couple of us were the mature, and there was a couple who were youngsters. And we felt that in the old days, we did go through exactly the same thing, but these days, with quite a lot has changed, and people are very aware of what they should be doing, they shouldn't be doing, and legislation is probably tighter as well. Having said that, the younger member of our team did express concern that there were times when they were worried about speaking up on the basis that perhaps they would be perceived to be feisty and perhaps not get invited again to meetings, etc., and the repercussions of that. So there was that bit as well. But one thing that was quite good that came out of it, and I'm probably taking Susan's, the member of the team's thunder, but I think from Southampton, what she was saying was that uh, they had mandatory training on something called the allyship program, which I hadn't heard of. And that sounded like such a good idea for people to have in their, either within their own divisions or as an organization as a whole, so that you know when to speak up and when something is not quite right, what happens in those kind of scenarios. So I thought that was really good. That's something that I've taken away from our group, definitely. But in general, I think the older generation tend to cope better with these microaggressions. The older one compared to the new ones, where they're still experiencing that. We felt we could speak out now, given our experience and everything else, whereas there was reluctance from the younger generation. Sorry, I'll get somebody else to speak now.
That's all right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Prue. That's a really interesting and useful, valuable share. And also a positive spin. You've labelled that change is happening, and you've labelled that allyship programs are going on. And certainly my experience in big companies, that male allyship programs are going on, asking them to champion women and to champion inclusivity and diversity within organisations. So that's a great thing. Cynthia, did you want to say something? I know you put your hand up.
Oh, yes, my colleague spoke, so I thought maybe not, but never mind. We were in a select group of 2, so I won't go through some of the ground that was already covered. But both of us have been in senior positions for a very long time, and we have normalized some of that behavior because we've come through that, and we have realized our own self-worth and value. We kind of brush it aside, but both of us in common will call it out when it happens to others. But when it happens to you, you don't do anything about it. So, and I think it's kind of, realization that perhaps, you're not setting a good example. So that's a bit I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Cynthia. And a lovely segue actually into talking about coping strategies, because one thing I was going to share with you is how much more powerful and useful this is if we can do it together. And if we have other women in our organizations, in our team, in our network, that we can agree behaviors with. So Cynthia then just talked about calling out, which is a really good strategy here for coping with microaggressions, sexism, racism, those sorts of things. And having someone else with you and agreed behaviors will be much more powerful and less frightening in a way, and less stressful if you can do it with others. So there's really 3 ways, and we've touched on those a little bit, of coping with microaggressions. Let it go, respond immediately, which is calling out, or respond later, which is calling in. Now, we've talked a little bit about let it go, and we've kind of, maybe there is a generational and an age difference going on here. If you've experienced it, you've learned to cope with it, it hurts you less. The fact, however, is it's still going on. And I think if we are women in senior leadership, let's think about role modeling behaviors we want for future generations and being the change that we seek. But letting it go means that you're choosing not to address the offensive comments in the moment, because that might be too stressful, might be a bit scary, might be emotionally draining, or you might not feel that it's your place. But that is one way. We can respond immediately by calling it out. And by that, I mean addressing the impact in the moment. That can feel risky and emotional, and the perpetrator can get defensive. Or we can respond later and call it in, asking to meet that person or persons at a later date to discuss what's going on. And that gives us time, as I suggested later, for the amygdala to calm down, our prefrontal cortex to do the processing, and focusing on reflection and not reacting. So let's think about calling out. If you want to call it out, you want to let someone know in that moment that their words or actions are unacceptable and they will not be tolerated. We're wanting to interrupt the conversation to prevent further harm. We know this might feel hard and uncomfortable and emotional, but we feel it's necessary. Some examples of that, and I'm very happy to send some of these to Nicola, to send you some of these after the session if it helps, is sort of, wow, ouch. I need to stop you right there. The words or comments I'm hearing are really triggering. Please be mindful and pick a different word. That's having an impact on me. I need to push back against that. I'm afraid I disagree. I don't feel that funny. Could you stop there, please? So what we're doing in the moment is labeling the behavior you're seeing because it's having an impact. Sometimes a word like ouch is really helpful. That word or that comment is having an impact on me. I need to stop you there. Or to call it in, that's responding later. Something's impacted you, you've had a response, but you need some time to process. So you're focusing on reflection and opportunity to meet that person later and explore deeper what went on. So here we're seeking to understand. We're seeking to learn, and hopefully that other person to learn, so that we can come up with other perspectives, other possibilities, share perspectives, and try not to get into the other person being defensive, which can happen if you call it out in the moment. So some examples of that. And when we're calling it in or we're discussing later, I'd really like you, as I said, to focus on the behavior and not the person. And also not to use the why question. When you ask someone why, it often becomes a defense. So we're thinking about how and what. I'm curious, what was your intention when you said that? How might the impact of your words and actions differ from your intent? What sort of impact do you think that comment might have? How might someone else have seen this differently from you? Is it possible you might have misinterpreted? Is it possible? So we're exploring what happened with the intent to make it better. The reason I wanted to give you 3 today is because when it's difficult and emotional, and we're busy at work, and often we're distanced and diverse teams, and we're digital, etc., that we need something that the brain can cope with in an emotional scenario or a stressful scenario. So let 3 things, the brain loves 3 things: let it go, call it out, or call it in. And I'm very happy to share that with Nicola post this session. We are actually going to jump whiz bang into another section of today. It's another C, it's confidence. So we've talked about microaggressions and coping. I know it's a big topic, and I know we could do a full hour, if not more, on that. But what I also wanted to share with you today is actually improving our resilience and confidence in the workplace to cope, and to cope with anything that is stressful or challenging. And for me, and an absolute passion for me, as both Nicola and Joanna Farmer at Interim Professionals know, is the mind-body link, and how important it is that our physical strength impacts our mental strength, that our physical resilience has an impact on our mental resilience. And this has actually been proven time and again by science. Now, I want to caveat before I launch that I understand how busy people are. And sometimes being asked to do something else or fit exercise in or fit something else in feels like an extra to do and an extra chore. But bear with me, because sometimes it's just one thing that we can do a week or one thing that we can fit in. It can be 10 minutes. It doesn't need to be hours. And the reason I became fascinated with the impact between brain and body is my 11 years as a fitness coach. And I'd say in that time, I saw thousands of people's stories, the story they tell themselves in their mind about themselves and their abilities, transformed by physical challenge. Another caveat, I'm going to use the word challenge, meaning something that is challenging to you. For some people, it might be walking a kilometre. For other people, it'd be running hundreds. Challenge means it's physically challenging to you and your muscle, not somebody else's. And I have worked with people in wheelchairs, and I have worked with people for cerebral palsy. For example, if you have cerebral palsy, a physical challenge for you might be hand or foot painting, something that is relevant to the individual. So what happens, I've found, is that people are doing something that is physically challenging for them, whether it's a kettlebell or skipping or dancing or getting into cold water, getting through something that they thought they couldn't do is transformative. We all have those voices sometimes. My inner critic, my gremlin is, you're not good enough, you're not good enough. That's what I hear. And sometimes that I'm not good enough, I don't look right, I can't, can be quite a loud voice. When we do something physical and get through something that was difficult and we go, wow, I did it. Oh my God. Confidence to go again. And that actually is scientifically a real thing. What your body learns impacts your brain. So the neural pathways to negotiate difficult at work is the same neural pathways to negotiate difficult in other areas of your life. So you're learning that you can endure and you can prevail. You're learning you can chip away at an obstacle despite your gremlins. And the magic that happens is confidence. Two women that I work with totally encapsulate that for me, and I'm going to share you a quick story. Tamina Islam, a young woman I worked with at the EY Foundation, a young Muslim girl in the playground who was bullied mercilessly for her acne and her headscarf and everything that she was. And she said to me, it crushes my confidence, but I so want to go to university and I so want to study politics and I so want to feel better. And then she shared with me that she started going kickboxing. And she said it transformed my life. My feeling of physical strength helped my presence in the playground, and people started to respect me. I had more respect on myself. It changed how I showed up, and it changed everything. And she still writes to me. She's gone to university. She's done her politics degree, and off she goes. And that's the sort of thing that warms my heart, brings tears to my eyes, because it is transformative. And another lady I worked with for a Sunday Times article, she was 72 when I met her, and she said to me, my aim is that I want to be able to get off the ground, Lara, if I fall over. So we literally started sitting to stand, small things like that. Within 6 weeks, she was a different person. She wrote to me and said, my friends are saying to me, Maggie, are you in love? Because the way she conducted herself, have you got a boyfriend? The way she conducted herself, the way she walked, she could take the stairs, not the elevator. And that was something small. That wasn't massive. That was 20 to 30 minutes a week for 6 weeks had already started to have an impact. And we know from neuroscience, there's a wonderful professor, there's a lovely book, How Confidence Works, by Professor Ian Robertson. He's the lead neuroscientist on this, who I love, part of the Centre for Brain Health. And he said our brain stores up memories of our bodily sensations and helps us deal with the next challenge. It's a great way of experiencing confidence and resilience to do it physically, because experiential learning is much better way of learning than, for example, a webinar, me telling you about it. You go and do it. It's going to be much more impactful than me telling you about it. So my call to you is we use the C's for microaggressions, to call out or to call in, and we use another C for confidence, which is challenge. So be a challenge seeker. whatever that means for you. I'm going to stop talking because we have time for questions, and so that everyone can get lunch and do what else they have to do. So enough from me. Thank you for listening, and I'll take some questions.
Thanks, Lara. I'll kick off with a question just to start it off, until someone else comes up with something. But I do have a question. So, like you said, it could only be 10 minutes a day. So if you only had 10 minutes a day, and bearing in mind most of our network are busy finance professionals, many home working or office working, some might have a commute. What do you think people can do within that 10 minutes to either improve physical fitness, confidence and resilience, or mental confidence and resilience?
Walk around the block, walk up a hill, pick 3 exercises and do it 5 times. 10 squats, 10 sit-ups, 10 press-ups of whichever variety suit you. Do it 5 times through, jump in the shower, get your cup of tea, off you go. All those sorts of things boost your brain, boost your blood flow, boost how you feel about yourself, and will gradually, like little habits, have an impact. They all build up. It's absolutely worth it. Sometimes we can't. Throw your coat on, jog around the block, walk around the block, something like that.
Thank you. And another thing I just wanted to pick up on, because what you said will have hit a nerve with probably everyone on this, or about 90% of our network, because we've covered the topic of imposter syndrome. I know a lot of people don't like to call it that, but you know, that feeling that you described of I'm not quite good enough. And I completely understand why you know, doing some of the ideas that you've come up with or that you mentioned today would encourage that, build that resilience and teach you to learn and endure. But what about if you just can't you can't even get into that at the beginning? If you're worried about if you're so worried about failure that you won't put yourself up for the challenge, and that's my worry. And I think a lot of my clients and people I speak to in the network are under so much pressure that sometimes actually they don't need another thing that they may perceive they might fail at. So what's your best sort of tip? I mean, I see this myself, you know, but what if I fail? But what if actually you probably won't? But how do you approach that with the people that you coach and know?
I think, yeah, I mean, difficult word, failure and fear of failure. And many of us would have heard many of times that those are your greatest learnings sometimes. There is nothing in the world without risk, and there are no guarantees. So where growth happens is where we're willing to take a little bit of a risk. So if you want everything to stay the same and you're happy with the same, if you're not and you want growth mentally and physically, you have to put yourself out there a little bit. And the way through that would be, I think, sometimes to do it with others. So if someone was in fear, then I would talk about what have they created in their mind about this idea of challenge, and let's trim it down. They might have immediately gone to a marathon. They might have immediately gone to something that really was scary. Let's find something that isn't so scary. It's still a challenge, but do it with someone else. We're very good at trying to be the goddess of everything and not showing people our vulnerabilities and asking for help. And what I coach a lot of the time is men are very good at having networks, right? And lying on that network. Let's be each other's network and let's help each other out. Let's say to my friend, I really want to do this. I'm a bit scared. Will you help me? People love being asked. Sometimes you're just brave to do that asking. So I would say always do it with others. It's much easier together. You want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together.
Thank you. I think Pat had her hand up a minute ago. Pat.
You can see me on the camera. If you can't, I do apologise. Yeah, there I am. Hi. Just thank you ever so much for what you've been saying. I just wanted to know if you've considered, and I'm sure you have, self-talk and how we can actually talk ourselves into being more confident and resilient. Thank you.
What a wonderful question. What a wonderful question. Thank you, Pat. And absolutely, negative self-talk, imposter syndrome. And I'm going to be honest with you, I hear it from women all the time. And if there's one thing I could take away to unleash the power of women on the world, it would be that. The judge in your head that says, don't say that. Someone else is going to think this of you. You're not this, you're not that. It dominated me as well. I totally understand that. My coping tool for that, have a play with this if you want to, is more C's, is the 3 C's. Again, the brain loves 3s, easy to remember, of negative self-talk. Catch it. Catch it. What is it saying? Who's the voice? Give that voice a name. One of the ladies told me it's her manager. Another lady I work with said it's her dad. Another one. Catch it, name it, label it. What's it saying? Check it. Ask. We're talking about trusted others and friends. Ask someone else. Am I this, that, and the other? What do you see? This and the other. Ask some other people and check your facts. Is your voice correct? Are you really bad at this? What's the evidence? Are you this, that, and the other? Check it. Let's bring the rational brain in and find some facts and then change it. The one wonderful thing we know about the brain is neuroplasticity exists. We can actually change the way we think. However, it's not easy. It really isn't easy. And I really understand that. I talk to mine all the time. You know, Lara 1 and Lara 2. Okay, I hear you. That's not helping. Back in your box. I'm going to go and do it anyway, sort of thing. Having those conversations, but you can choose to then say, actually, what Louise is really good at, what Pat's really good at, what I know I really can do, and focus on that positive. Even writing down your little wins every week. That helps us with motivation. Brain loves dopamine, intrinsically motivation. So we all go, oh, you know, oh no, it wasn't me. Oh, sorry, this, oh, I didn't do this. Actually celebrate your little wins, even if it's to yourself and not to other people. Put a little post-it and go, yeah, I did that really well, actually. Catch it, check it, change it. Doesn't mean we can change it overnight, but it's just one way of coping with when those voices, and we all have them, those negative voices get too loud. I hope that's helpful, Pat. And thank you for raising a great question.
Yes, it is.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lara. That was a fantastic answer as well. Although I think now my head is struggling to cope with all the C's, all the different.
I'll write it down for you. I'll write it down.
Yeah, I have been recording this webinar as well, so please
So
let me know if you want the recording.
Yeah, we've got calling in and calling out.
Yeah, I've got them.
Mm-hmm. We've got challenge and confidence, and we've got the 3 C's of negative self-talk. Catch it, check it, change it. So if you can remember the letter C today, you're a winner.
Yeah, we'll see a massive difference in all our confidence from now on. No, thank you so much. Believe it or not, we're coming to the end of our hour. It does go so quickly, but I think especially today when we covered such big topics and we tried to fit in a lot today. So thank you so much for that, Lara. It was fantastic and really inspiring. I don't know if we had Lara 1 or Lara 2, but possibly a bit of both, sharing your experience,
yeah,
but also
they're always there.
Yeah. But that was great. There's loads that I think will have resonated with people here today around the microaggressions and coping mechanisms, and what you've said, the 3: let it go, call out, call in, do something, one of those 3. But I think as well, it only really dawned on me today in this session about perhaps that we do let a lot of these things slide, particularly if you've been like I have doing the job for 25 years. But you might not accept it for others. But I think it was Cynthia that shared you would let it go for yourself, which is sometimes a bit of a shame as well that we were doing that and allowing things to progress that actually might not sit so well with other people. So loads around that, and as well on the confidence side, oh my goodness, the mind-body link. It's even hearing you say I'm not good enough, but what you can do, what all of us can do in our own ways, to counter that and to challenge that. Hopefully people have picked things up from this session today that will be useful for them moving forward. Just a couple of other things to remind you all about for the next couple of Women in Leadership for Finance events. There's the National HFMA conference in London on the 6th to the 8th of December. For the last couple of years, we've held some drinks about 4:30 on the Thursday afternoon, Thursday the 7th, I think that is. at the Hilton Metropole for Women in Leadership members. So if you're at the HFMA, come and join us there. We have a stand there, I&E professionals. So definitely catch up with me and we can make sure you're going to come to the drinks. It's really good for networking at an event where people are really comfortable with networking or that the opportunity is there for you to be. And the second thing is our next webinar will take place on the 15th of January. We have another great webinar lined up for you then with 3 speakers. So Mike Fox and Victoria Jeffries, who are actually husband and wife power couple in NHS finance, and Henry Black. The subject will be around male allyship and shared caring. And yes, how people manage workload and a career and children, sort of outside responsibilities, family responsibilities, in NHS finance, and they're going to share some quite interesting ways that they've done that or continue to do that. But hopefully it'll be a really good discussion. So all really was to say thanks so much to Lara. Thank you to Sarah, my co-host today. Thank you to everyone that's tuned in, asked a question, got involved. Please do recommend Women in Leadership networks, and let us know if there's any topics you want to talk about or you want to hear us arrange for you in future webinars. Lara and I are going to stay on the call if you want to stay on for a bit more chat for the next 10 minutes or so. But otherwise, thank you everyone for attending and look forward to seeing you at the next one, if not in person, at the HFMA.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Nicola.